Mama. Are you looking for ways to make learning more fun and engaging? Well, today I'm sharing 10 everyday activities that totally count as homeschool, and your kids might not even realize they're learning. So most days in our homeschool, we sit down at the table and we do what looks like traditional school work. My kids have math workbooks. They might write a paragraph. They might trace letters in a handwriting book. They may read a book to me. We may talk about what we're learning. We may discuss. We may do question and answer. Those kinds of things. And then we dismiss school for the day. But school is actually not over. My kids just think it is. When they go into their own thing, they're still learning and they're still developing skills. And one of the most powerful things about homeschool is the freedom to follow your kids' interests and to let them lead, to let them choose what they're going to do and how they're going to do it. So when the kids have their own opportunity to choose their activities, like building blocks or making up a play and doing that with their siblings, or dancing around the living room, or baking cookies, they're not just having fun, but they're engaging in meaningful, self-directed learning. And research shows us that when children have their own sense of autonomy, their own ownership over their learning, they're more motivated, they're more curious, and they're more likely to retain what they learn. That means play and fun is actually more effective than your workbooks. How about that? So if your heart tells you something needs to be different, you're right. So I want you to lean in, get out a paper and pencil, grab your phone and take some notes. I want to show you 10 different things that you can do with your kids or allow them to do that all count as school. And what I do is once they've engaged in these activities, I go back and write that down and document what they've done as part of our school day. So building a Lego city, acting out a Bible story, inventing their own board game, all of those things are not time off from school. It's actually school. And that's where the deepest learning may take place. So the 10 things are this. One is life skills and practical skills. Things like cooking and baking, where you're teaching science and math and reading recipes. One of my favorite stories is my daughter said, this calls for 3/4 of a cup of whatever. And she goes, where's the 3/4 cup? So we had to do some math because like, there's not a 3/4 cup. What are you going to have to do? How do you come up with 3/4 of a cup? And so she had to go, oh, I got to use three. I've got to use the 1/4 3 times, or I've got to use the half and the fourth. So we had to work through that. So she was learning right there as we were teaching, actually not teaching, just baking. Grocery store shopping. This can teach life skills like reading labels or budgeting or meal planning, real world math. Gardening is another good one. It teaches science. You see the life cycle of the plant. You see the different kinds of seeds and the way that things grow differently. You learn when something is ripe and what kind of animals like to eat your plants, what plants grow well together, all that science stuff. It's also teaching the social studies skills of responsibility and patience. Knitting, sewing, crafting, those are fine motor skills. It counts as home ec as well. Household projects, building or putting something together, doing those kinds of things that involve measuring, problem solving, or teamwork. They all count as school. Car maintenance lessons. Now, this has not happened at our house, but it could happen at yours. It's teaching life skills, the mechanical understanding. It's very, very important, and it counts as school. Any kind of budgeting or family finance talks. You can involve your kids at all ages in age-appropriate ways to talk about their own personal finances through their part-time job and their allowance, or the family goals and budgets, like we're saving this towards vacation, or we're not going out to eat because we're cutting down on the spending, or we're trying to get out of debt. And you can share with them some of your goals and some of the things in age-appropriate ways. Organizing your room, their room, decluttering a room, all of those things involve decision making, categorizing, and those are all skills as well. Number 2 is outdoor and nature-based learning. So when you take nature walks with your children, or your children are out in the backyard and they're exploring, when they're walking through the woods, when you take them to a park, they are actually doing school. And I love the Seek app by iNaturalist. We can take pictures of different plants or animals, different bugs. We can upload that to the app and it will identify what it is for us. So that's a really fun thing that we can do. And then we can go get books on those and learn more about them. We can draw pictures of those animals and what they did. However you want to go on from that, it's all learning. Bird watching is learning. Hiking is learning. It's PE, it's geography. You learn about ecosystems. You can do more of those plant and animal identifications. Collecting and classifying rocks, leaves, or insects, that's all learning. Starting a nature journal or a sketchbook, having an ant farm or a worm farm, even your household pets, watching them, especially if you get a puppy or kitten or something, you're watching the different developmental changes in that animal, or you're watching how they interact with one another and different personality things, different traits of this one does this and this kind of animal does that, and that's how they're different. Stargazing, watching the stars and learning about constellations. And look, let me just say here, my children are absolutely fascinated with this, and this was not something that I knew anything about. So you don't have to be an expert on it for your kids to learn. We just went out and got some books. We looked at the stars. I knew, okay, that's Orion, that's a constellation. I know about Orion and his belt and Orion the hunter. That was all I knew. Big Dipper, Little Dipper, But other than that, I didn't know a whole lot. So we went to a planetarium, we got some books, we continued to look at stars, we watched some shows, and we learned so much more, and we learned it together all around nature. Weather tracking, and whether it's, little kids looking at the sky and going, oh, it's dark, it's cloudy, it's going to rain, or whether it's older kids looking at the clouds and going, oh, this is this kind of cloud and this is that kind of cloud, or building a simple weather station. All of those things are learning under the category of nature and outdoors. So number 3 is community service. And this can look a lot of different ways. It could be volunteering at a food pantry or an animal shelter or a homeless shelter or a crisis pregnancy center. And depending on your kid's age and interest, right, you're gonna want to be careful about how you engage there. But my children, we went as a family and we cooked meals for homeless people at a shelter, and we were all there together. It was a really safe environment, and my kids were able to interact and to serve and to help. We had one of our older girls volunteered on a weekly basis at the Crisis Pregnancy Center. She was mostly in the office and organizing the supply closet and that kind of thing, but she was learning all kinds of job skills. She was learning to interact with people. She was learning empathy. I mean, there's a lot of things that she learned from volunteering there. My kids, I've taught them how to select ready-to-eat foods with Pop Tops to donate to food boxes we have around town. Our local library has one, just a donation center. And whether it's personal hygiene supplies or, like I said, these ready-to-eat foods, we buy these things at the grocery store. I let my kids, every time we go to the grocery store, select these things, and we add them to that box. And we actually even take time to pray over these things before we put them in the box. So that's all part of learning, and it's self-directed. My kids love to do it. We talk about buying for our friends, and they literally choose these things that they want to choose to purchase and put there and donate. And they're so excited when they see people come by the box and take things out, or we come back out of the library and the box is empty. The things that we've brought have been taken. That really makes them happy. And that's part of the learning process of all sorts of learning taking place there. Visiting the elderly. So we visit my grandmother. She's 98. We visit her on a regular basis. And we also talk to and love on any other people that are there as we're going and coming from this retirement community. The people that are in the lobby or in the parking lot, on the halls, on our way, sometimes we swim with her, so on the way to her pool there, or in the elevator up and down on the way to her apartment, we're engaging with all of those people there, loving on them, talking to them. And I've taught my kids, these people may not see their children or grandchildren or great-grandchildren on a regular basis. So you can kind of be that surrogate for them, and you can love on them like they are your grandparents. So we've learned these people's names, and we engage with them. We look them in the eye and all of those things. So I'm teaching my children how to respect people, how to honor people, how to interact with people, how to speak up clearly, answering questions. So lots of good social studies stuff going on there as we're learning. Drawing pictures, writing letters, making care packages. So whether it's for the elderly or someone who's sick or someone who's just had a baby or a birthday, or thank you notes to dance teachers, all of those things count as learning. My kids participate in church activities and missions things. So whether it's cleaning the church, my older girls used to do that on a regular basis. We went in and cleaned the church one day a week. Whether it's packing shoeboxes for Operation Christmas Child, or selecting items to purchase and put in that box. Those are all learning things. Organizing a small fundraiser or service project could even be part of that community service. Number 4 is movement. You may call this PE, but any kind of movement is part of learning. So dance lessons, martial arts, gymnastics, soccer, any kind of sports, swimming. These are things that my kids have personally been involved in over the years. And movement is really important for our bodies. And like I said, it counts as PE. It can count as health, as you're learning about stewarding your body, what you should eat and how you should exercise, that kind of thing. So that could count as health as well. And movement is great for kinesthetic learners. So when I was in grad school, I took a class on multiple intelligences, and we learned how to teach through movement, that there were kinesthetic learners that needed to move their hands and their bodies as they were learning. So we literally, as a group of adults, all of these teachers in this class, we danced the water cycle. We created a dance about the water cycle, and we danced the water cycle. And we also made up some songs and did some other things in that class. It was really, really neat experience. So moving in alignment with what you're learning, writing the letters in the air. So for your kindergartners, writing the letters or the numbers in the air, making them in writing them in shaving cream, things like that, bodily kinesthetic things that help with learning. And some kids just do this naturally, completely on their own. Some of this you may have to guide them through or suggest that they do. Also, movement is really important for kids with attention issues. So getting up early and exercising before you do school is important. It helps them to sit still. Also, movement while they're learning. Some kids can't sit still. So giving them the exercise ball to sit on so they can roll around, or having some kind of fidget toy that they can move while they're listening, that helps. So all of those movement things are important. Number 5, creativity and the arts. So learning through arts is very important, and you can learn all sorts of things or demonstrate your understanding of things through the arts. So I'll use the arts for not just learning, but also assessment. So any drawing, painting, or sculpting is learning. Acting and drama, whether you're acting out a historical event or a Bible story or a book you've read. One of my daughters did a play at co-op. She participated in that and got to do a play. Another one was in drama at the youth group, and she learned how to do different things, different techniques, different skills there. 3 of them have participated in mime over the years. So my kids really enjoy drama and learning through that. Storytelling and playwriting count as language arts activities, and that's part of learning. And it's some kids are just naturally good at that or interested in that. They read something or watch something, and then they want to write it down, or they want to retell it. I have one that's huge on retelling. She'll watch a television show and she wants to tell you then about it, or she reads a book and she wants to tell it to you in her own words, which is really, really important. And it helps me to assess her understanding. What did she understand? What did she misunderstand? What did she leave out? Making stop motion animation videos. Now, my kids don't do this, but we have friends that do, and it's super cool to watch this take place. They take something and they move it a little bit, and they take multiple pictures of it as they move the different things, and they make these stop motion videos, which are really, really cool. And a lot of learning goes into that, a lot of patience. There's a lot of technique there. Learning to play an instrument is also part of learning. So motor skills, and not just music, okay, but the motor skills involved. There's reading involved, there's math, and there's science involved. So there's so much learning when they're learning to play an instrument. And this could be in a band or with a private instructor, but this could also be them trying to figure it out on their own. There's something to be said for allowing kids to just have an instrument and to explore on their own and see what they can discover and see what they do with that. Singing and music appreciation also count as learning. The 6th way to engage your kids in learning without it looking like traditional school or feeling like school is field trips and outings. And you may already know this, and you may think about this in maybe more of a public school mindset, but anything can be a field trip. So going to the grocery store, going to the post office or UPS, going out to get ice cream, there's all sorts of learning involved there. And it's really neat to see what my kids notice about the workers, or making change, or sanitary things, whatever it is that they're noticing about different restaurants, or where does all that mail go? Why do we put it in the box outside? So all these questions and answers of everywhere you go, you can learn. But you can also do more traditional field trips like museums and aquariums. And look, there are all sorts of different types of museums out there. And my kids have been to several different ones over the years, and we've had a lot of learning that goes on through that. Also, visits to the farm, visits to a zoo, visits to state parks and historical sites. You can go on factory tours or behind the scenes field trips. I know of people that have gone to the Amazon distribution center to see how that works, or the EMS station, and they've talked to the ambulance drivers, and they've talked about different things that go on behind the scenes. They get to be in the ambulance, they get to see different equipment. So you can schedule those kinds of things as well. Farmers markets, and even your local library. And I know that not every local library is a safe place, and so I get that. But for those of you that have the ability to go somewhere and it's a safe, wholesome place, the local library is a great place to learn as well. There are books, there's games, there's computers that have educational software on them, so the library can be a great resource. Number 7, faith-based learning. Another way of learning, and it doesn't necessarily look like learning, is reading your Bible with your children. They're reading their Bible, discussing the Bible. That's history, that's language arts. Scripture memorization. Anytime we're memorizing, we're strengthening our brain. So memorization is good for them. And so when they're memorizing scripture, that is school. When they're reading missionary biographies, when they're participating in family worship or prayer time, all of that is learning. So all of that counts. Number 8 is time with siblings. So when your kids are playing together or working together, when they're reading together, when they're mentoring one another, when they're listening to an audiobook or watching an educational show or even on a website together, all of those things are educational. It's really interesting to see the social interaction and the social skills that are developing there, how they teach and train one another, how they, I love the older ones show me what they know as they're mentoring the little ones. And the little ones are absorbing all kinds of things from the big ones, but they also, they're able to teach the big ones how to mentor and how to interact. So there's a ton of learning going on when siblings interact with one another. Number 9 is play and games. This is the one that gets the most pushback because it does not look like learning at all, and people think that kids are goofing off. But when you sit down and look at the skills, there are a ton of skills being acquired through play and games. Think about board games and card games, for example. You need logic, critical thinking skills, math, strategy. I mean, all sorts of things are being taught there. My little one plays Candyland, and she's learning to recognize colors, taking turns, going around the circle. It's your turn, not your turn, not your turn. Okay, I'm going to go 1. No, I'm going to go 2. Oh, I've got to go back. Oh, I've got to go forward. There's a lot of vocabulary being learned there as well. Monopoly. My kids love Monopoly. There's counting and there's adding and there's budgeting. There's the business sense of managing risk that goes on in the game of Monopoly. Headbands. You put the headband on, it has a picture or a word on there, and so you're having to describe and you're having to guess. There's a lot of thinking that goes on in that game. Chess and checkers are games of strategy and skill. Charades, where you're acting things out, you're giving clues, you're problem solving. They're really having to think. There's certain words they're not allowed to say, or they're not allowed to say anything at all. I'm thinking Pictionary, things like that. Those games are very beneficial. They're very educational. Scavenger hunts, where you're problem solving, where you're using your observational skills, where you're thinking about where could this be? Is it high? Is it low? Is it over here? Oh, I didn't look over there. Dramatic play is another great way for kids to learn. You don't think about them learning, but they are, and they're applying what they've already learned. They're learning new things from one another. They're developing vocabulary. It's so awesome when they're playing house, when they're playing doctor, when they're playing restaurant or scientist or pioneers, and you're able to listen in and kind of assess what have they learned through their play. And it's really neat to see them building and practicing that vocabulary, interacting with one another, applying the skills that they've learned in their own way. And so instead of just reading about a scientist or the scientific method, they are pretending that they're in their science lab and they've got all the experiments and they're using the words and they're using the beakers, and you see this. It is such a great thing it builds their confidence as well. And even building with Legos or blocks, there's STEM skills, there's science, engineering, and mathematics skills going on as they're building, as they're creating, as they're exploring. Oh, that didn't work. There wasn't, the structure wasn't good and it didn't stay together. So we've got to do it this way. Following the instructions. If you're building something you've purchased from Lego and it's got the instructions, and following along the right way and the reasons behind that. There's so much learning going on even during play. And number 10 is conversations. So I love to talk to my children all the time, everywhere. Deuteronomy 6 says to talk about the ways of God on the road, and as you rise up, and as you go down back to bed again, and as you're sitting around the table, you are to talk about the ways of God. And so I talk with my children about everything from a biblical perspective throughout the day, whether it's at mealtime or in the car, bedtime, when we're in the store, and whether it's about God or not. We're talking and we're learning. They're noticing things. We're building vocabulary. There's critical thinking going on. Well, why do you think that lady has gloves on, at this restaurant? Why do you think they're wiping down the table over there? Why do you think they want you to get a new plate before you go back to the buffet? We're thinking, and I'm guiding them. I'm able to shape their worldview. I'm able to help them to build their character. They're connecting information. We read this book over here. We talked about this at UPS, and now we're seeing this that's different or similar at the post office. And they're understanding, and they're assessing the world around them, and they're saying what their understanding is back to me, so I'm able to assess what they are understanding. And so it's just a great way to build relationships and to build their learning, just to continue what they're doing. So Mama, I hope you can hear from all of this, all the ways that kids can learn without it looking like traditional school. I want you to feel free to follow your heart, to follow your kids' lead, to let them play and explore and know that they're still learning. You can have confidence that they are acquiring knowledge, they are growing, and you're doing the right thing, even if it doesn't look like traditional school. If this video today encouraged you, please give it a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button so we can keep walking this journey together. Also, drop a comment if anything in here surprised you, or maybe you have an activity that I missed that you'd like to share with us. I'd love to hear from you. And if you're new to homeschooling and you want to find out more, please check out my free resource called Kickstart Your Homeschool. In this short online course, I share with you the steps about getting legal within your state, setting up your homeschool space, how to set up your schedule, how to find groups to connect with, how to grade, how to document, and so much more. The link for all of that is in the description below. Happy homeschooling.